What's for dinner and where to focus? Two of the most fundamental and important questions you can ask. Now, I don't know what's cooking tonight, but I do know exactly where you should be focusing when it comes to landscape photography. And that's what we're going to look at in this video. Short and sweet. I've got some example images, and these are different scenes because the answer is not always the same when it comes to focus. So we're going to talk about the variables which dictate where we should be focusing. By the end of the video, you're going to have a lot of confidence to go out and get images sharp from front to back. Okay, let's have a look. So why is this question important? Well, most of us want to have images which are in focus and in focus from front to back, and where we focus will really determine how much of the scene is actually sharp. There's a few factors though which also come into play, and these are your f-stop. How much depth of field are you getting with that specific f-stop? The other factor, your focal length. The wider you are, naturally the more you're going to get in focus. When we're zoomed in really tight, we're going to have a shallower depth of field, even on the same apertures. And then the last part that really comes in is proximity to subject matter. Are you incredibly close to your subject, or are you quite far away? All of those combined with where we actually focus will determine how sharp is our frame. So let's look at some examples now. I'll talk about where I focus for each and what are the different scenarios you're going to face. First one here, a classic wide angle perspective, a big landscape scene, foreground, midground, background, incredibly close to the foreground as well. Definitely want a narrow f-stop, f8, 9, 10, 11, f16, getting those narrow f-stops. Which magic number? Well, it depends how close are you to the foreground and what's your focal length. So if I'm really wide, I might be able to get the whole frame sharp at f8. And where do I focus when I'm doing that? In this particular frame, I'm focusing somewhere not in the immediate foreground, not in the background, in that midground area, either right on the edge of the fern here or in the distance there. So how do you know which is the right one? You just shoot and then review the image. So I would basically focus on the fern at say f8, and then I zoom in and magnify the image in camera, and I check and I look at the mountain, I look at the fern, and then I'm looking in these corners down here. Am I sharp? If I'm soft in the far background, then instead of f8, I might need f11. If I'm sharp in the background and on the fern, but then soft right here, in that case, I might need f16. If I'm sharp again on the fern in the background, but I'm still struggling to get sharp in the foreground, then I might either have to step back a little bit. And if I don't like the look in the composition when I do that, I will then need to focus stack. Focus here and take a frame here, and then back there, 1, 2, 3. Focus stacking to get an infinite depth of field. But this scenario is one of the more common in landscape. Most of the time, 90% of the time, focusing in that middle area, the midground. Don't overthink it, don't overanalyze, don't think, oh, should I focus on the river, or these trees, or the rocks? All of that is the same to the lens. It's all far away. Just keep it simple. Foreground, midground, background. Break it down like that. Let's look at another example. Low to the ground here, wide angle view. We've got foreground, midground, background, just like the last one. So where do you think I focused? You guessed it, in that middle area, the midground. Not in the immediate foreground, not off in the distance. Focus in the midground. This was a single frame at f14, and when I reviewed the image, it was sharp all the way through. Nice and easy, job done. What about this next one? I'm not as close to the foreground here as those previous frames, so where did I focus? That's right, midground. So you can see a common thread going on. Look at something different here now. Let's take a look at this one. What would you do in this scenario? For this type of frame, just focus directly on the main subject matter. So obviously we have the branch here sticking out from the tree. Focus on that. Now, if I'm happy having the background blurred out, fine. If I want that sharp as well, or just instead of sharpness, let's just call it in focus. That's all about the aperture now. If I focus back there, then I'll probably be soft on this main subject because I'm so close and I'm zoomed in. This is 75mm, relatively close, looking down at my feet. So I want to make sure I'm always focusing on that subject, so that is tack sharp. Then it's the f-stop which will determine how far does that focus spread towards us and away from us. So maybe f11 will get clarity and in focus all the way through here, but we're a little bit soft in the far corners. Then I keep closing the f-stop down, f16, f18, etc. till I get the result that I'm after. One more example image that we'll look at, this one, and this one's different to the rest because all of this subject matter is far away. Where do you focus here? Either on the bird or just on the mountains in the back, because all of this is shot at roughly 100 mil, 130 mil. It's all far away, and at that point, it almost becomes irrelevant what the f-stop is, because to the lens, this is a flat scene. The lens is not picking up from this distance that this range of trees here coming down from the mountain is closer than this one and then closer than that one. So the proximity to the subject matter matters. Now, if the bird was significantly closer than all of this matter back here, or the subject matter, then maybe you'll have the bird soft if you're focusing here, and vice versa. If you focus on the bird and back here is soft, well, the bird is just way too close. You have some clear separation between the two. But if it's all far away in the distance, it's almost irrelevant. It doesn't matter where you focus. It barely even matters what the f-stop is when it comes to getting things in focus. So let's keep it nice and simple. Just analyze your frame. How close am I to that subject matter? What's my focal length? 90% of the time, you're going to be focusing in that mid-ground area anyway. The best way to know is just shoot and check and then adjust accordingly. Sometimes you'll have to close the f-stop down more. Instead of f8, you might need f11. Sometimes you might have to focus stack in a worst case scenario because you are so close to the foreground, it's impossible to get that in a single frame. And then other times, like this last image, it's almost irrelevant because it's all far away. Just focus straight on the main subject. Hopefully this helps, guys, demystifies things a little bit. I remember when I was starting out, I'd get frustrated trying to figure out exactly where I should be focusing. I was reading about hyperfocal distance and just overthinking it. Honestly, 90% of the time, get it in that mid-ground area with a narrow f-stop. It should get you out of trouble most of the time, and then just take those necessary steps accordingly. All right, thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in a new one soon.